Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Richard and welcome back to the weekly Watchlist video sponsored by MarketSmith. And this week I saw a fair number of setups, so hopefully after a bit of consolidation with the indexes the past 2 weeks, we see some fall throughs to the upside and see some of these setups start to emerge, break out, and start to trend at all-time highs. But regardless, I've got 15 stocks on my radar, and in this video we'll go through both the fundamental and technical aspects of all of these, and I'll talk about how I would actually trade them. And if you do enjoy this video, please go ahead and leave a like down below. It really does help me out and my channel. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one every single week. And also, before we get any further, let me know down below in the comment section your top idea for next week, and I'll try to reply and give my take on as many as I can. But diving into the video, let's start with COIN, Coinbase. And as crypto is starting to move up off its lows and the bases that have been forming in Ethereum, Bitcoin, all of those big name coins, you've got this stock trying to kind of form a bottom here after a bit of a decline from its IPO. So we'll see what happens. There are some nice constructive bars here at the bottom of the space. And I like the recent gap up and pocket pivot, and then pretty much it's pulled back into its shorter term moving averages. So what I'm looking for is a 2-2 reversal to the upside, a breakthrough 250, and then challenge of the kind of monthly high recently, the 261.15 level. So overall, the earnings growth, sales growth, margins is fantastic. Estimates for this year are insane as well. There is supposed to be a little bit of a drop off in 2022, but still not too bad. And I don't like that the estimate revisions are down, but we'll see what happens. These can always be revised upwards, and you've got earnings in 9 days. And with that report, I think we'll really see where the stock is going to go the next 6-12 months or so. But regardless, we've already got a bunch of funds in this stock and 2 high quality funds, and we'll see if it works out through these pivots. And also an undercut reclaim of the 50 SMA or 21-day exponential moving average would also be a valid setup for this stock. So moving on, we've got CRCT, another recent IPO that had been trending quite well, but then pulled back from 47.36 down to 31, and is really tight now, right below the 50-day and 21-day exponential moving average. Overall, you've got fantastic earnings, sales, margins, the most recent 4 quarters, decent estimates for this year and the next in terms of annual EPS. Estimate revisions are up, so that is a good sign. You've got a nice increase in fund ownership and 1 high quality fund in there as well. And as for the chart, I like these 2 bars right here and right here. And we'll see if we can break above this high and the 50 SMA 21-day exponential moving average and start to form out a base and move back towards 40, as well as this pivot around 38.89. And this high is 39.2. So we'll see what happens with this stock, but definitely one worth keeping an eye on. Moving on, we've got CrowdStrike Holdings, and overall you can see fantastic earnings, sales, margins, the most recent 4 quarters, great estimates for this year and the next. I like how the estimate revisions are up as well, and you've got a nice increase in fund ownership and 1 high quality fund, Fidelity Contra Fund, invested into the stock, and it's right above the pivot of the stage 3 consolidation here. And I'm watching for some type of reversal here. We've been an undercut and reclaim of the pivot at 251.28, or potentially a breakout through this high and the 21-day exponential moving average and move back towards these highs. But overall, a strong stock. Estimates are still increasing. Fantastic quarterly results as well. So we'll just see if we get some power and some volume coming up as well. And as this moves sideways here right above the pivot, I like how, for the most part, all the down volume is quite below average, and really it's only the increases on volume that are above average, so that is very constructive. So that is CrowdStrike. Moving on, we've got Dash, and overall we've got fantastic sales growth the most recent 4 quarters. Estimate revisions are up, although they're not supposed to be positive this year or the next, but we are improving, which is a good sign. And we've got a bunch of funds in here as well as Fidelity Contra Fund. And as for the chart, it has gone a little bit whippy the past few days, but I'm looking for a 2-2 reversal back through the 21-day exponential moving average, maybe a move through 185.85 on volume. And you do have earnings in 11 days, so you don't have too much time to build up a cushion before that event, but I'll be watching this one very closely. Moving on, we've got DocuSign, which has been fantastic since its earnings report here with the earnings surprise. Basically, all the up volume has been on above average volume, and the down volume has been on below average, and it's moved up, moved sideways on below average volume, then moved up again, acting really, really well. And once again, it's pulling back towards this pivot on below average volume. So I'm watching for a reversal back through 300 on volume and a breakout through these pivots, or an undercut and reclaim of the day exponential moving average, which also lines up with the stage 2 pivot at 290.23. So I'll be watching this one very closely. Great earnings, sales, margins, great estimates as well. Nice increase in fund ownership, and 4 high quality funds invested in this stock as well. So moving on, we've got ENPH, a solar name here. It's been a while since this has been on our radar, but overall very well-run company, great earnings, sales, margins. You can see over the past 4 quarters, you see a little bit of acceleration in earnings, in sales as well. Margins are still very strong, so a really well-run company. And you've also got really nice estimates for this year and the next in terms of annual EPS, a nice increase in fund ownership, and 1 high-quality fund in there as well. And going to a weekly chart, what also stood out to me was the ROE is 50%. That's very, very strong. So overall, going back to the daily, what I'm looking for is how it reacts to this pivot. Ideally, you have a little bit of a pullback on lower volume, and then you can use this as a pivot right here, manage your risk against this swing low. But overall, this looks very, very strong, and it's acted really well since this earnings report. So on this day, it reported. Then this day, we had a bullish outside day, taking out both the low and high of the range. Then a consolidation day, and then a nice move on this Friday as well, another bullish outside day. So maybe we don't get this pullback, but it remains to be seen how it will act versus this pivot. And if it does move through this on volume, I'll be watching to see how it acts near all-time highs. So that is ENPH. Overall, a strong stock. And as I said, it's been quite a while since we had a solar name on this list because they had such a tremendous run in 2020. Moving on, we've got LC, Lending Club Corporation, and we'll see how this acts. This is a recent earnings gap up. Great earnings, sales, margins as well. Estimate revisions are up. That's a great sign. Really big boost expected in 2022 as well. Not a huge increase in fund ownership and no high quality funds in this just yet, but RS rating is a very strong 99. And this is a very powerful move, the highest volume ever, I believe. So we'll see how this acts versus this close right here. And if it makes a little bit of a flag, pulls back on below average volume, then you can buy a breakout through this or the highs right here. So that is LC. And moving on, we've got NVDA. Looking at the earnings, sales, margins, this is very, very strong. Great estimates for this year and the next as well in terms of annual EPS. Nice growth in fund ownership and a whole bunch of high quality funds in there as well. And this was one of the earliest movers from the growth space during this uptrend. And now it's pulled back towards the 50 SMA and 10-week area and moved up, formed a little bit of a flag here right below 200 and is pulling back on below average volume. So I like this dry up in volume, looks very constructive, and we'll see how it moves through this on volume sometime next week. Or you could also use an undercut reclaim of the 21 EMA on market weakness and see how it acts from there. So that is NVIDIA. Moving on, we've got RBLX, which is pulling back right towards these pivots right here. And you've also got the high volume close from last week to manage risk against. So some confluence here. I do want to see some type of tightness, especially considering the dry up in volume here, and then a push through that on volume. And if we do get a little bit of a 2-2 reversal, maybe a 3-bar break above these highs, I really want to see it hold 80 by the end of the week. And I want to see a move up on volume because this formation is a little bit suspect given this failure here and because we're below a declining 21 EMA. But regardless, the sales growth is very strong in the past 4 weeks. Estimate revisions are down, unfortunately, so keep that in mind. You do have nice fund ownership already and 3 high quality funds in there as well. So that is RBLX, definitely a stock I'll be watching closely. Moving on, we've got Silvergate, and this goes with the Coinbase crypto theme. Looking at the chart, it's very similar to a lot of crypto-related stocks like Riot or Mara, but regardless, it's forming a little bit of a structure here above 100, right below these pivots right here. So I'll be watching to see how it acts versus these highs, and I want to see a push up on volume or potentially an undercut and reclaim of these key moving averages or the 100 level. But overall, it did report earnings last week, it looks like, or actually 2 weeks ago. Percent change 176%. Earnings surprise there, looks very strong. So we'll see how it acts next week. And looking at the quarterly numbers, you can see nice earnings, sales, margins, great estimates for this year and the next. Estimate revisions are up as well. Nice growth in fund ownership and 2 high quality funds in there as well. So that is SI. Moving on, we've got Snap still just pulling back towards the pivot on below average volume. So I'll see if this kind of pushes through these levels next week. Great earnings, sales, margins, estimate revisions are up. Nice growth in fund ownership and 4 high quality funds in there as well. Moving on, we've got Snowflake, and is forming a little bit of a structure here above 255. And now you've got 275 as potential resistance here. Didn't act too well late last week, some downside reversal bars, but they are on below average volume. So I'm watching for is a push through these highs on above average volume, a move towards 300. And looking at the sales, you can see really nice growth the past 4 quarters. Decent estimates. You have estimate revisions up for 2023, but they're down for 2022, but they are improving versus the previous years. Looking at the fund sponsorship, it is increasing over the past 4 quarters, and you've got 3 high quality funds in there as well as the stock tries to form out the right side of its institutional due diligence phase. So that is SNOW. And moving on, we've got Tesla. This was another stock that acted well after earnings here. No earnings surprise, but a very strong report nevertheless, plus 230%. Sales strong as well, margins great as well. And it didn't react too much right away, but then had a nice inside day on very tight price and volume action, and then moved through that high right here, an inside day and up on the 29th, and pushed through these highs for a 3-bar break. So that would have been the earliest entry here. And now we've got the 700 pivot to deal with. So I wanted to see a push through that on volume. Moving on, we've got TTD, and this base does not look great, but if you go to a weekly, it's kind of within the character of the stock. And see if we can go to a monthly here to have these large declines and then another push up. So we'll see what happens here. We are in a 2-up month, so the longer term time frame is with us. But going to a daily chart, what I'm looking for is an orderly pullback to this prior pivot, 81.89. I like how it's on below average volume, and we do have EPS in 8 days, so not much time to build a cushion, but I want to see how it acts versus this pivot, as well as it tries to move up towards the top of the base before that earnings report. Overall, some growth the past few quarters, really strong estimates for this year, although estimate revisions are down for this year and the next. Nice increase in fund ownership over the past 2 years, and 5 high quality funds invest in this stock. So strong fundamentals, but the price action has to match. And I think the earnings report will really decide where the stock goes, whether we continue to base or break out above 97.28 into all-time highs. So that is TTD. And lastly, we've got DXCM, another earnings gap up that I'll be watching very closely. You can see that earnings growth is actually down 4%, but there was a strong earnings surprise up 72.73%. Sales were strong as well, margins strong as well versus the previous quarters, and estimate revisions are up in terms of annual EPS. Overall, nice growth in fund ownership over the past 2 years, and a whole bunch of high quality funds invested into this company. So I'll be watching to see how this forms. Maybe it makes a little bit of a flag above 500, pulls back, goes sideways, frustrates a lot of people over the next 3 weeks or so, but I'll be watching to see how it acts versus this high. And going to a weekly chart, this is pretty much 11-month base. So a big, strong move on volume, breaking out to an all-time highs. That's the most bullish sign you can have. So overall, that is my list going into the next week. Don't forget to let me know down below one stock you're watching for next week and why. And overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys in future videos. Thanks.